And I'm saying one. Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? What's happening? What's up? What's going on, y'all? We are back, and it is Wednesday, guys. Wednesday, March the 3rd. This is the third day of the third month of the year. How did that work out? Man, that's cool, right? So, hey, my name is Eric McKinley, and I am the Director of Program Development of National Business Builders. As you jump on, do us a favor. Go ahead and like it, share it, and tag some people. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go ahead to my group, and I'm going to start tagging the panel right now so they can see what's going on, and they can share it to their platform if they like to. Hope y'all having a good evening. Hope you had a great day. Because I most definitely did. I laid up in the bed most of the day. Don't judge me. Charge it to my head. Don't judge me. So, yeah. It feels good to be able to do that, man. It feels good to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to, I was in a position where I thought I had to, so that's what I was doing. And
hey, can't nobody know but you, man.
Yeah, I just told everybody now, though, so everybody know now.
I said, can't nobody know if you got to but you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I felt like I had to, man. So, I wanted to go ahead and get some rest and get my mind together. So, you know how that goes, man. You know how that goes. I'm sharing still, y'all. So, give me 1 second. I'm just about done. And tonight, tonight I'm loving this subject, man. I'm loving this topic because that's what the rave is. I want to be talking about the rave of what's going on. I want to talk about what's going on. Get this topic together. That's the only thing I don't too much like about StreamYard, unless I haven't figured it out yet. Haven't figured out how to share without having to share. I thought I was broadcasting to my main page, but obviously I don't know. I may not be. But anyway, thank y'all for jumping on. I appreciate it. Like it, share it, tag somebody. And if somebody tags you, make sure you tag somebody else. Share this information. We're talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about the racial wealth gap. The racial wealth gap in the community, in the Black community. And the reason why I want to talk about that because there's a huge buzz going on right now. A couple of questions I'm going to ask. It's going to be like how's the wealth gap in America affecting your family and your community? Also, how can you improve your situation? How can you not be a part of the statistics that they're putting out there? So my name is Eric McKinley. I'm the Director of Program Development of National Business Builders. We got Pastor Gregory Napier on the call from Columbus, Ohio. We got Mr. James Hall on the call from Falling Waters, West Virginia. I know, ladies, y'all came in last this time. We got Miss Quartina Trafford, that's down in Huntsville, Rocket City, Alabama. And we got Miss Lily Blunt. Her and her sister sent me some nice desserts, man. Shout out to you from St. Louis, Missouri. So it's great to have some great people in your circle and around you, man. I'm enjoying them doggone desserts already, man. I'm serious. I'm loving it. So y'all go ahead. Y'all got if y'all need an opportunity to share it, I tagged y'all in my post. I tagged y'all already. So if you want to share it, you can share it. I'm gonna do something I didn't do the last time. I didn't know I could do it. I'm gonna go ahead and make this thing. Here we go. Voila, magic. I just got bigger. I can see everything now. So it looks like a television screen with a teleprompter at the bottom. And I want y'all to see this, man. I put this on the bottom. There's a lot of people that's gonna have some things to say, and I want you to say everything you want to say. Listen, it's not a platform that we want to get on and everybody just agrees with everything we say. So if anybody in here has something that they want to share, and there's some people out there, if you got questions, comments, anything you want to share with us, matter of fact, make sure you put it in the comments and we'll address it. One reason why financially uneducated and illiterate families are not building wealth is because many don't understand the difference between income and cash flow. And they also don't understand the difference between living well off and being wealthy. That's what I'm gonna put out there. So this picture behind me was going around. This right here is going around. It's talking about the net worth of black families versus the net worth of white families. And surprisingly, our panel is all black, but don't worry about that. I have some white friends as well. But it just so happens that's what we're looking at right now. But I want y'all to see something, right? This picture, they say pictures say 1,000 words, right? But I put a post out this morning because this picture is leaving out about 2,000 or 3,000 words. What do I mean by that? Okay, so there's gonna be some people that look like me that probably gonna say, "Well, Eric, you're siding with the other side." Well, the other side is right, and I'm gonna tell you why. Now, part of this is true, but a huge part of it, I feel, is not true. I'm knowing that if you leave one word out of a phrase, that it's going to change the whole meaning of a sentence or a paragraph. Okay. So let me just throw some stats out there. You can go out there and look it up if you want. The United States is roughly about 350 million Americans. Excuse me, about 350 million Americans. That's roughly. Now, the black population, black Americans make up roughly about 12.8 or 13%. That's approximately 45 million people. Okay. So if we're making up about 13% of this population, if you know your math and we do everything in hundreds, that means that there's 87% of the other side of the population. And that's making up Latinos, Asians, Caucasians, right? Okay, so now, for all intents and purposes, when you fill out an application, most times it's going to say non-black, right? African American, non-black, or whatever, and they kind of group certain ethnicities or races together. So when I was doing some research today, I saw that everything was kind of grouped together with Caucasians, and blacks were by themselves. So here's the thing. As we get this thing started, I want y'all to understand it doesn't matter if it's Fox News, it doesn't matter if it's CNN, it doesn't matter if it's your local news, you do your own research. I'm not a fan of Fox News, but there are statistics that say that this is what's going on. But this ain't really what's going on. It's going to affect my household. And I'm going to get an idea of how it affects other people as well. But if you look at this, it says the net worth of black families is $17,150. And then it says the net worth of white families is $171,000. Now, first off, you got to understand what net worth means. We didn't understand that. So we got to break this thing down. So let's talk about what net worth means, y'all. Anybody, go.
I think it goes back to what we've talked about previously. That's when you're looking at your cash, your assets, all of that combined. That's basically what's going to account for your net worth.
So you're talking about cash, your assets, meaning like investment accounts, maybe real estate is asset.
Real estate, exactly.
If somebody is dabbling in cryptocurrency, that's an asset. So you got to look at all your assets, right? Not how much you're making a year, or how much you're making a year on your job, right? Anybody else want to lay claim to that? What is net worth? Okay, don't worry about it. We'll move along. Go ahead.
Here's one that we didn't even elaborate, and I'm just going to mention it briefly because I was doing some financial updating of my stuff. When we talked about all our assets and our available cash, stocks, bonds, and it was something that I considered when I started looking at my life insurance policies as well. My whole life, the ones that's actually, earning dividends on it that could be cashed out or that I can take a loan on it. That's also an asset. A lot of people don't take that into consideration as well when we start talking about our assets.
Okay. So a lot of people leave out the insurance policies, which can be an asset as well. Okay. You got to look at anything that has value. It could be antiques. It could be antiques in your home. You know, it could be antiques in your home. It could be things like that. But there are a lot of things that we don't consider when we're talking about what assets really are. And the net worth is what's making that up. The assets is what's making up your net worth. So we got Ms. Bertha just jumped on the call. Thank you for joining.
So I can talk.
Yeah, Pastor P. Listen, I got my hand. Go ahead and do your thing.
I just want to, you know, I don't want to, you know, be the guy that always get picked on because I talk too much, you know.
Never.
But
Who said
this is a subject that when I looked at it, and I started thinking about my own personal life in terms of me being, I saw that same post, and it wasn't new to me when I saw that. The difference between the wealth gap, and the wealth gap has always been that large. It's just that when you see it in numbers, it just magnifies more. The only reason that most of us are even able to talk about it right now is because we have experienced it of some sort on both sides of the pendulum, if that's a correct word. So my definition of the gap, I don't have a definition of it. I just have I like this. I like to understand what the problem is and then speak to the solutions to the problem. So and I talk about this, and I'll be talking about it again on Thursday in Bible study as far as biblical wise. But here's what's going on in a nutshell. Our parents could only teach us to the level that they understood anything that had to do with money. Basically, our parents, and I'll just use me from my generation of being a baby boomer, is that we only it was mostly survival mode. So we didn't know anything about assets and liabilities and having savings and any of all of these things that we're talking about now. So it's not that it wasn't available for us. It's just that in a certain economical area, you just didn't have access to it because you were in survival mode. Me speaking of me, then the majority of the people that look like me as a black man in America raised by a female, at two females for that matter. My mother could only teach us as much as she knew. She could only learn, but based off what her mother taught her. I know you're probably saying, well, what does that have to do with the wealth gap? It has everything to do with the wealth gap in our community. We have to understand that the mindset is all it is. If we don't understand, once we understand what's going on, then it's up to us. And this is a great platform for people to, if they're not getting anything when they're coming here, especially us or whoever, is to learn that once you get your mind correct and you see it, then hopefully we can narrow the gap. But if you don't understand and acknowledge that you have a problem, it won't make any. It'll be just like we said before. There's two types of cash flows. You're either going to be continue to cash flow positive or continue to cash flow negative. But if you don't understand that, and then you don't teach, and then my remedy for that was to start early, to start teaching our kids. Like James says, how old is your youngest child, James?
6 years old.
Yeah, so at 6, I already know that by the time James' child gets 18, he's going to be far advanced than James was at 18. I know this to be a fact.
Yeah.
The reason I know this to be a fact is because he's already teaching him now. But just look at your mind and where you were at 6. I can tell you where I was at 6. I was learning on my own. My mother wasn't teaching me nothing about money other than keeping money for a rainy day. Whereas in the white community, and see, when we talk about white and black, let's talk about poor and rich. See, we throw in this middle class. Middle class been thrown away a long time. There ain't no such thing. There ain't no. I don't want to bust nobody's bubble.
Yeah, we're gonna bust that bubble today. It don't
middle
exist.
class went away a long time ago. You either rich or you poor. If there ain't no middle. If you looking for middle, just because you may fall into a certain group of money that you're in the middle class, no, somebody lied to you. You just don't know that you've been lied to. That's why that number is 17,000 for Black Americans. And then when Eric said something about when he saw the statistic, the other ethnic groups were thrown in with whites. It's bigger than that, but we don't have enough time on this platform to talk about the disparity of that. I would just say we know what the problem is. Let's speak to the solution. I'm always into the solution deal. Let's start teaching those who want to be taught, because there's always going to be a certain percentage of people. Don't make no difference what platform you put it on, because when Jesus said the poor would be with us always, that wasn't just about money.
Yes,
that was your mindset. Because everybody talks about knowledge is power. No, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So we can give up. We just have to keep doing this right here. The reason it's a sticky subject is because people want to bury their head in the sand. I was one of those people. I was like, I'm making good money, but I don't really understand the money game for real. That's why I constantly engross myself in books and information and get on platforms like this so I can constantly keep learning. At 63, I'm still learning. So
let's talk about that then. Let's talk about how people don't really understand. So the flip side of it is they put their head in the sand like an ostrich. Yeah, I read, y'all. I'm from the country, but I've gone to the zoo as well. And people put their head in the sand and they just hope that everything's gonna get better. See, statistics like this doesn't depict the whole story. Like I said before in the beginning, it's 13% of Black people in this country. So you cannot even begin to compare that to 87% of other races. Now that's one thing. Now you have to dig inside of the 13%. Out of that 13%, now that 13% represents 100% of the Black people. Want y'all to work with me, okay? The 13% represents 100% of the Black people. So now you got to ask me, how much percentage of that 13% does that not affect? You see what I'm saying? Because it doesn't affect the entire 13%. If you look on the call, there's people on the call right now whose net worth is $17,151.
You mean on this panel or on the call?
On the panel and on the call. People are going to see this and they have more net worth than this. And they're going to be people of color. They're going to be people that's Black. So what happens is you put everybody in one skillet, in one pan, and you start frying stuff up. And what you start doing, you start stirring up mess. And before we can actually do the research and understand why would somebody even put this out here? Because this is not accurate. They put it out here to start some mess.
That's right.
That was the whole premise of it. That was to start mess.
Start some mess.
Yeah. Because you and I know that 17,000. Because me and my wife was doing the numbers ourselves on the net worth. It right here in Columbus, Ohio, just in Columbus, and it was way higher. It was higher than that, and it wasn't that much of a disparity.
So here's another thing. Y'all. Before we move on to the next question, there was a post, because I'm in a couple of Facebook groups in South Carolina, and there was a post that was in one of those groups, and somebody mentioned to the fact that they were making six figures. They were earning six figures. I'm gonna say this. How much you earn ain't got nothing to do with what your net worth is.
That's 100% correct.
How much you earn on your job or in your business has absolutely nothing to do with your net worth. You can take someone who's earning $200,000 a year, and you can take someone who's earning $40,000 a year, and the person that has $40,000 can have a larger net worth than the person that's earning $200,000. So I want everyone to understand that, because when we talk about this is just some foolishness right here. I'm not saying that none of it's true. I'm saying the bulk of it is not. You're missing some information in here. You're missing information in here, and it begins with the education of understanding what is net worth and how are you going to calculate your net worth. You're talking about, like Cortina said, you're talking about your assets, your investment. You're talking about your savings accounts, your liquid and your investment accounts. You're talking about your life insurance that may have some cash value in it. You're talking about your properties. You may have some rental properties that may be, see, we don't know how to count.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't know how to count.
Yeah.
And because we don't know how to count, we look at some foolishness like this and we start posting. People people who are in the network that we're in get out there and they start posting because they don't understand. I made a post earlier about should wealthy people pay more in taxes. I just want to kick up some dust and see what people are thinking out there. And of course, you're going to get people who think that people who are the 1%ers should be paying more taxes because they have more money. But there's nothing out there that says that you can't use the same laws and the same rules that apply to everybody, so you can position yourself so your net worth can be on this side. See, this is not a black or white number right here.
That's right.
This is not an ethnic number right here. Now back in the early years, it was an ethnic number because people didn't understand. But even then, it was people of color who had wealth, and they had more than that. So let's keep on going. So we're talking about, if y'all just jumping on, we got a panel of discussionists. I'm just making up words, y'all. We got a panel.
I like that word, discussionists.
We got a panel.
I want to bring this point too. Like, if you think about it, we're talking about net worth, we're talking about assets. And the reality is there are some scenarios where even something that is classified as an asset can also be a liability. A lot of people who, especially through the mortgage crisis in 2008, 2009, who found their asset, the one thing that they found the most valuable, right? Their house, the one thing people place a lot of value in, that was upside down. Then you find people that even their vehicles, they're upside down on their vehicles. So the goal is to understand how to put your faith really in the right assets.
Yeah, I like that. How to put your faith in the right asset. The application of knowledge, the proper application of knowledge is power. And we read and inhale. We inhale the wrong things, ladies and gentlemen. We take in a lot of the wrong things. So the question is going to be now that if this is what the statistics are saying for 13% of a group of people in America, and nobody's trying to dive into how many percentages of that 13% are not living like that, I wasn't offended. I was just appalled that they still got this stat out here. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. But you got to ask yourself now, what are you doing? If you fall into this category right here, if you look like me or if you don't look like me, it's not about color. It's about your financial state right now. See, poor people are people who are not earning a lot of money, people who fall under the poverty line, as government says, the poverty line. People fall under the poverty line. You don't have to be in this position. See, what they didn't do is they didn't take the 87% and put them over here too.
I was about to say that, because if the 13, see, and this is where the misnomer comes, the misunderstanding comes on these numbers. Okay, the 87%, when you take this and break this down and say, okay, we got the black community is 17,000, blah, 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 and the white is 171. See, if I'm 13%, then that other 85%, okay, it's more. See, that's why you can't break it down to black and white. It got to be poor. because there are more poor white folks in the world, I mean in the United States, than there are blacks.
And that's because of per capita.
Per capita. That's the numbers. I don't have to be a math person to know the numbers. Is that if you're saying that the black race, is 13% of the population, then that means that other 87%, then now you got to break the 87% down and see how many of those are poor whites. And you will be surprised that that's a high number when you break that 87 down.
And if you look at it, if you're looking at 45 million and you look at another 45, 50, maybe 60 million out of that 350 million, now your numbers are going to go down. Your numbers go down. Like you said,
that was foolishness. When I first saw it, I was like, that ain't nothing but somebody trying to stir up some foolishness to get people all in an uproar. That's why you got to take your head out of the news and put your head in a book.
Put your head in your assets.
Well, that too. Well, so, when you read, you'll find out about some assets, and then you got to start educating. I put down in my notes here is that we all got to start early. Like I was alluding to, talking about James and his 6-year-old. I know for a fact that James' 6-year-old, when that child gets 18, he's going to be far more advanced than most of the 18-year-old children that he's going to be hanging around with. That's a fact. That's what we have to do as a community, regardless if you're black, white, green. See, I separate the deal when it comes to color. That's the reason why we keep falling in this trap.
To get to
the devil's trap is to put you into this box and compartmentalize you into black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, Japanese. But when I cut each one of y'all open, y'all gonna bleed red.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be nothing about. So when you fall into society's mess, then that's why we have this foolishness going on. So when you see what the devil's device is, you got to get a little bit smarter and go ahead of that.
And that's why we're here right now, because we want people to get on the call to be educated so they can be smarter about not allowing yourself to be taken off track. Because there's some people who are building wealth with us who've seen this, and they're going to let themselves get taken off track. Listen, I put some notes on Facebook. I'm gonna read them. Not that y'all can't read, but I'm gonna read them to the people who may have not saw this. Of course, I said already. They said a picture says 1,000 words, but I think they left a lot of words out here. It's easier for someone to continue to receive and believe a lie than it is to believe that they've been lied to.
Amen.
Now, here's some pointers. Like I said, the black population by statistics make up approximately 13% of the country. That's roughly 45 million people. In case you're not that good with numbers, I'm just reading what I'm saying, at least 87% of the other people in other races. Approximately 305 million people left. Now, that does not accurately account for the percentage of the 13 whose net worth is more than 171,000. Okay, we have some percentages in the 13 that have way more net worth than 171. Bottom line is this. Excuse me. If this picture applies to anybody out there, no matter what your race is, then you need to ask yourself, what are you willing to do to change it? Stop buying junk. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. Stop buying junk and liabilities. I did that because that was me. I didn't know I was buying liabilities, but I was buying liabilities. Stop supporting big business as a consumer only. Stop supporting banks and other financial institutions by accepting debt. I'm going to say that one again. Stop supporting banks and other financial institutions by accepting debt. Stop supporting the government by overpaying your taxes. Those things I think you need to stop if you're serious about building. Then, if you're serious about building, you need to start investing in income producing assets. If you don't know what that is, get with somebody on the panel. Change your circle. Because if you're 48 years young like I am, and you still out there talking to people who pole mouthing and having pity parties, you need to get out of that circle fast. Because they're just Debbie Downers. You don't want to listen to them. Okay? Start participating as a producer in this economy. Get your personal net worth up. Read some books, man. Read something other than the funny papers. Read something other than the news. Stop looking at that stuff. Find out ways that you can improve yourself and your family and the people who are in your circle. Become financially independent by becoming a bank. You can be the bank yourself. You can be the lender and not the borrower. And last but not least, start building wealth using the same tax strategies that 1% is using to get that wealth. Now that's just a small number, $171,000 in net worth. Because if you running around my age right now, you should have that times probably 3 in your investment account because you're coming up on retirement. So those numbers don't depict the true story. There's some people out there who said some things. I know one of our coach, he said some phenomenal things because he had a class and he was talking about how he already gave us the keys to build wealth. God has already given us the keys to build wealth. If you are in the position that you're on the 17,000 side, then you need to start looking at some things. So what do y'all take on it, man? Y'all talk about what are some things that you can do. Well, I didn't ask you how it's affecting you. So how is this affecting your household? If anybody wants to share, how is this affecting your household or in your household?
Let me say one thing, Eric. That picture alone, if you think about it, it's like even if I'm on the 17 side and I see somebody else is the average in 171, they ain't doing that far better than I am. If we think the concept of abundance that what we're trying to live in, right? If we understand that we're supposed to have more than enough, at what point in time really is 171 going to ever be enough? If we're going to stop working, 171, shoot, if I find somebody who say, well, I'm doing better than you because I'm at the 171, I'm like, well, look, what are you going to do to get more than that? Because that ain't enough for you. And then we get sold on the concept that we look at that and we feel bad. But you ought to feel bad, really, if you're on either one, because there's growth and there's obviously more that we need to be doing. But to answer your question, is not affecting my household. It's not affecting my household at all. Why? Because I don't focus on those numbers. I focus on my game plan. I focus on my cash flow plan. I focus on my business plan. And I focus on my list of priorities: God, family, health, and wealth. Because if I focus on those numbers, I'm gonna get in a tiff. You know, so I'm gonna get anxious. I'm gonna get a little. I'm not gonna be able to focus. The goal and the understanding is when you run your plan, can't nobody help you deviate from it when it's your plan.
That's it, Jay.
So you're saying in a sense that people shouldn't even be worried about these numbers. They should make sure they got a plan. Right now,
that was my thought when I first saw it. When I first. My wife and I had the conversation when I asked her the question. I said, well, how can I ask? It says, how is the wealth gap in America affecting your family and your community? I know how it's affecting the community, but like James said, it's not affecting me because my head is out of the sand. So if my head is out of the sand and I understand what the plan is and what I'm striving for, that number of 171, basically me as a believer, I'm compartmentalizing myself and saying that's all I'm worth or can get is 171. When I start doing the numbers, I was like, I surpassed that long time ago.
But if you do the math, what they're doing is they're trying to make it like, okay, we know that's, if you look at that, you know that's 10 times, right? That's 10 times. Okay. Now, if you want to impress me, first, I don't really care about that. But if you want to impress somebody, it seems to me that the 171 should have been on one side and then it should have been 10 times on the other side to get people's attention. Because you're looking at 7 figures to retire. At least 7 figures to retire. Now, I know a lot of people who can retire with 6 figures. They got to make sure that the money is working for them now at a high interest yield, or high interest bearing investment or vehicle. But when you start looking at the value of money and how inflation affects money in 20 years, that 171 is going to be worth half of that.
Maybe less than that.
Maybe less, you know. So when we're looking at this, and asking, you know, how is this affecting your family? How's it affecting your community? Because if you don't have a plan, what that tells me is that there's a lot of people, and not just Black people. Now I need everybody to understand this and hear this. There's a lot of people who are below the poverty line who don't have a plan. The only play that they've been running is I'm gonna work this job for 40 years. And what's happening is the job is outliving them. I'm gonna say that again so somebody can hear it. How many people you know? How many people you know? How many people you know who got hired on a job, and the first thing they said was, "I'm gonna retire from here." I did it.
I said that in 1984 when I first went to the Postal Service in 1984 at 26 years of age. I'm going to do 30 here. I'm going to be 50. I'm going to do 50. I'll be 56 at that time. But then 15 years in, it started kicking in on the math, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be 56 with 30 years, and I still can't retire. That's how I left. That's how I left, because the math wasn't making no sense. And I said, if I stay here another 20, I'm gonna be what, 76?
You're gonna have a hump in your back.
And I'm gonna be no better off working 50 years than working 30 years. The math wasn't working. So I said,
it never works. It never works.
Because the job ain't set up for you for that.
People understand. People do understand residual income. They understand. They just go about getting it the wrong way. They go 40 years to try to get it.
So let me ask you this. We say a job ain't set up for that. For a person who makes $100,000 a year in business for 30 years, but they live at $110,000, was the business set up for it too?
Their mindset ain't set up for it.
So we got to stop saying a job ain't set up for it. The fact of the matter is, $5 in one person's hand is way different than $5 in somebody else's.
Okay. So talk to me then.
That still goes back to what we were talking about before, the mindset. So if your mind is in the wrong state of mind, you're right. That $5 in my hand and that $5 in your hand, if you're not thinking about what to do with the $5 besides saving it or investing it, or opposed to spending it, this the first concept come to your mind is spending it. Then yes, you're right. That's different. So
we as a panel have to agree that regardless of where you spend 40 years, whether it's on a job or whether it's in a business, it does not matter. If your money is going away like liquid, then you won't have any. The fact of the matter is, we got to start coming together to understand that regardless of where somebody spends 40 years, as long as they buy or grow an asset, which whether they build a business or not, they can grow an asset. Can we all agree on that?
Investment.
Correct.
To stop and be careful not to say that if they spend 40 years on a job, they might actually have a better situation if they have the mindset to do right with their money versus somebody who made 10 times them in the same 40 years.
Okay,
that's a great point, James.
Clean up. Let me flip it. If you stand on the job for 40 years with the idea that you're gonna just retire and live off of your retirement, then you need to go ahead and think about your mindset.
That's basically what Eric is talking about.
But I didn't say that though. I said, and I don't want people to think I'm beating down a job. I'm not. I'm for the panel, for people on the panel, y'all know what I'm talking about. But for people outside the panel, for people who are just listening or may hear this pass by, I don't want you to think I'm beating your job down. I'm not saying that. You need to have a strategy while you're working your job. You need to have a plan while you're working your job. If your plan is to work for 40 years and you don't have any plan to build an asset while you're working it, I'm gonna case in point. When I got out of the military, I had a 3-year break in the military from 1998 to 2001. I was no smarter in 1991 when I joined the military than when I was in 1998 when I took a break. I wasn't no smarter financially. So when I joined the forces outside the military, I had a good paying job. And that good paying job treated me like a good worker because I was working hard. And y'all gonna keep on seeing me say this because I was a fool. I had no plan. So I jumped into that job and I said, you know, I'm 26 years young. I can retire from this job. Then I got to talking to people. Listen to what I'm telling you. I worked at Baton Rouge Water Company. They ain't gonna look at it. And I worked at Baton Rouge Water Company. And at 26, in order for me to get my retirement, it wasn't 30 years. I had to work till I was 62.
Exactly.
Then I heard I went back to the Army. because I knew the men that were out there in the company. Now remember, that was hard labor. We had shovels and we had sharpshooters. We had literally had axes and pickaxes. Now, of course, we had machines, but the new guy didn't use the machine. They used the shovel. And I started off on the shovel. And it didn't matter how motivated I was at the time. I knew that the math wasn't adding up. The math wasn't adding up. You had people out there who had been working the job for 30 years. They started when they was 18. Do the math, 48 years. 48 years old and couldn't retire at 30 years. Had to work till they was 62 or wait until 62 to get the money. That ain't cool.
Well, it's going through the same thing James talking about. A guy can work the job. There's two different people here. There's the $5 person that got the money. Like, they'll just use you, saying it wasn't cool. Then you got Greg over here who's working right beside you, but Greg has got the information on how to build an asset. Yeah. So Greg is taking his money or a portion of his money. If they got 401k on the job, he's maximizing it. Okay, so that's building that. So if he takes some courses or whatever, and he's learning how to build an asset, he might have bought a fourplex or whatever. So Greg's 40 years and Eric's 40 years are going to be totally different.
Totally different.
Greg at the end of 40 years, he might be just working the job because he just wants to stay busy because he did the math and says, okay, at the end of 40 years, based off the projection of me getting education and investing my money, building these assets, I'm going to have more money in my assets than the job is going to give me per month. Yeah. Whereas Eric is just working because he don't know no better. He didn't listen to nobody. And I'm saying this from personal experience because I work with a bunch of people who was making good money with me side by side from when I started at 26 that wasn't maximizing what ours was a TSP. They were not maximized. I was having conversations where they said, I can't afford it. And I said, you can't afford not to get it because most of y'all don't know this, but the Postal Service switched from a civil servant employee to a Social Security employee, meaning that at the end of 30 years, if you don't have no money put in, you ain't getting no check. You ain't getting nothing at the end of 30 years. Nobody on the outside don't know that. So when I was telling these people this, I'm saying, brother, sister, you need to maximize this TSP because at the end of 30 years, if you don't got nothing in here, you're going to just work 30 years and you ain't getting no checks. Like my wife is a civil service employee, but up till 1984, when I came in, they switched it. So people on the outside looking in thinking, oh, you got that good government job. Yeah. But at the end of 30 years, you ain't getting no checks every month.
Yeah. It's like
James is right on this deal. If we could just teach the people to understand that in order for you to stay ahead of the curve and not fall into this situation of 13%, 87%, just learn. If you don't do nothing but just learn on your job, whatever they got, maximize it.
And that's a start. That
will be investing 101. I knew that before I even came into this organization because when they told me the math wasn't making sense, it's like, okay, so at the end of 30 years, if I don't put no money into this TSP, I ain't gonna have no money.
But the other reason why that number is so profound and it's thrown in people's faces It's because people get complacent. Now let's talk about that briefly, the complacency and why that's staying where it's at. Because now I'm doing that. I'm putting the money in my 401k or my 403b or whatever other investment or retirement account the company has. I'm maxing it out. I've run into several people who don't even understand the age of 59 and a half. And they check out at 55. And they don't have any cushion between 55 and 59 and a half. They have no income. They have no money coming in. See, the idea about cash flow, if nothing's flowing in and you have a pot or a pile of money and nothing's coming in and you steadily using that pile, it's going to deplete. And if you never put nothing back. So a lot of this is about, that's why the 171 is stagnant. The 171 is stagnant because people have gotten complacent. They say, well, I got my retirement. I got my 401k. You can't retire. The average 401k is what? About $125,000, $140,000, maybe.
If that.
So do you think somebody can, after 40 years of working a job, can retire on that without going back to work? Not if you're...
Because you're going to get 40% of that money of whatever you was making for that job, it depletes. So that's the number that a lot of them don't look at. They don't even pay attention to it. Nobody's telling them, because when they told us that if you don't, that nobody was giving us financial education. They were just saying, these are your retirement options. So you wasn't getting no financial education. I promise you, you had to go out and figure it out yourself. And there was a bunch of them that wasn't figuring it out. And I've talked, the ones that's still there, I haven't talked to a bunch of them since then, but they still trying to figure out, because they ask me all the time, Greg, how was you able to leave? I said, well, there's a lot of different variables to it, but I just knew that if I stayed here for, stop, dog. If I stayed here for 30 years, my dog, y'all got to excuse, I got a dog that wants people's attention. So if I stay here 30 years, the math wasn't working. So all I can say to anybody, panel-wise, it keeps boiling back to education. And how bad do you want it? Do you want to just keep buying into the lie that you looking at on news, or you looking at, listen to your broke friend over here, that if he your friend and he broke and he telling you financial information and you looking at his situation or her situation and you said, okay, this person ain't got no more money than I got, but I'm listening to them because they might be a little older than me. Really?
Well, it goes back to this too. Listen, y'all. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, if you looking at somebody saying, well, you know what, didn't nobody tell me, or you going back telling people ain't gonna hear it. They're not listening. That's what's going on right now. If it's not their idea, oftentimes people are not going to hear it, because the first thing somebody's going to say is that four-letter word. They talk about how much of a scam something is. And I'm not talking about what we do. I'm talking about just in general, the education part. When you're telling someone, hey, listen, let's do the math, let's do the numbers. And one of our mentors did it really well. But he did some numbers, and he said, if you need $5,000 a month, right? Let's say you retire. Let's say you start working at 70 years old. I'll say 70 years old. Okay. We gotta factor in how long we're gonna live. We don't know, but we gotta do some type of guesstimation. Let's say from 70, or let's say from 60 until 80. We want to be okay for 20 years. But our monthly expenses is $5,000 a month. So that means that we need to be drawing something in interest that's going to produce $5,000 a month. See, what I've had in the past is people retired, and I'm gonna tell you this true story. They retired, and I was still in the age of the pension. People retire, and they pull all their money. Mm-hmm. Now that's dumb. Mm-hmm. I don't care what education you got. That's dumb. You pull all your money. Instead of living off the interest, you living off the principal. You living off your entire seed. You don't have to have education about financial education for that. All you gotta know is 1 + 1 is 2. and 1 minus 1 is 0. That's all you gotta know. Because every dollar you take off, that's one less dollar that's not growing. And I know people who've done that. They did that. They took all their money and they started having a nice time. I don't know if they thought they was gonna die early or what, but they still living.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
Just to interject, man. If you think about, it reminds me of the Bible story, the prodigal son. When he took his money, he took his half of the wealth, and he was a fool because he did not understand that if you don't have anything to replenish it, you can't keep it going. It's a very simple concept, but if you think about the application of this concept in so many things, when it comes to just that list of priorities I gave, God, family, health, and wealth. If you are a giver, right, and you give and you give and you give, but nothing or nobody is giving back to you, you are depleted. It's the same principle. So that story just kind of came to mind, and it's just important for people to realize, like, regardless of where you are, you don't have to stay there. Mm-hmm. But it's going to take some change and some sacrifice to start to do something different.
It's going to take a lot of change mindset-wise. And I would think, depending on how far someone's mindset is along the road, it may not take a lot of sacrifice, but it may take some. It's going to take some, because you're going to have to give something up. I want everybody that's listening to understand this. And just think about this. Correct me if it don't make sense, if it's wrong. Think about it like this. If you're out there saying that, hey, I want to be debt-free, okay? Because, of course, debt-free is going to increase your cash flow, which is going to increase your net worth. Debt-free.
That's why I knew that was foolishness when I first saw it. I'm like, it's
going to decrease. Debt decreases your net worth, right or right?
Yes.
It don't matter if it's good debt or bad debt. It still decreases your net worth.
Correct.
If I have a house that is valued at $300,000, but I owe $200,000 on it, then I really don't have an asset but of $100,000 technically. So now, let's say we completely out of debt, completely, but we have monthly expenses, lights, internet, cell phone, car insurance, life insurance of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. Those are our recurring expenses. We still cannot deplete. We still cannot deplete that cash flow that ain't flowing. That's a cash pond. That ain't a cash flow. It's a pond, because when you pull that thing out, and like you said, it's not producing, it's not reproducing, it's not generating anything but receipt. You ain't generating nothing but receipts. Then you're gonna soon have to go back to the workforce to start to create some type of flow, some type of movement in your money. Right now, what's happening is people are taking the toilet paper and they're flushing it down the toilet, and they can't go to the sewer for the toilet paper to dry out and clean up. It's gone. And that might not be a great analogy, but that's what's happening. Every time we buy some junk that cannot replace anything or cannot grow, even as James said about people were thinking that that a house is an investment or is an asset. It can be if you treat it the correct way, but regardless, anything that's coming out of your pocket is a liability. So as long as you got to pay, it's a liability. If we don't understand those simple terms, if we don't understand net worth, cash flow, liabilities, assets, if we don't understand how the tax system works and how it can actually improve our personal finances, if we don't understand that, we're going to look at this and we're going to panic. We're going to say, there's no chance. There's no way that we can, all this time we haven't moved. Well, yeah, we have moved. We moved. I don't know what y'all doing, but we moved. And if I'm part of that, or the number that they put in everybody, then, and that's the thing. So that's why we're on here to show people that, listen, we're having movement. We're having movement. James, you made some good points. Pastor Greg, you made some good points. Cortina made some good points. I want y'all to understand something though. when we get on these calls, it ain't a kumbaya moment, y'all. If something ain't being said correctly, hey, ain't nobody getting on here for us to all sing together and be in harmony. We're here to educate. And sometimes things are said that's not correct, and sometimes things are said that's not clear. We want everybody to have a clear understanding when they see this and understand that the pictures that they're going to be putting out and all the junk they're going to be talking about, it means nothing. You got to take care of your own economy. Your own economy. Because I promise you, when you look at the wealthy people, that's still like 1%. So now the 13% don't really matter. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's a whole other conversation all by itself, because that segment of people, and that ain't got nothing to do with black, white, green, or yellow. 1% don't got nothing to do with color.
Yeah.
It got to do with people who understand what to do with their money.
With their tools.
Yeah. But they've been taught from a young age. I just discovered a book yesterday that a friend of mine told me about that I had never even heard. And I was like, ooh. Then when I went and got it on Audible, I was like, this is some serious stuff.
What book are you referring to?
What that book? The Jekyll something. I'll give it to you in a minute. Here it is.
That's what we got to be doing, man. That's gonna improve our network.
The Creature from Jekyll Island.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. Are they talking about South Carolina?
Yes. They ain't talking about South Carolina. Yes. Yeah. And I ain't delving. I'm just in the first. I ain't even got past the first chapter yet. So don't hold me to nothing on it. But it's talking about the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
And how it was formed. And once you start, and my friend told me this is a money guy. I won't even say nothing other than he's a money guy. Okay. He's not in the organization that we in. I've known him for a long time. So I was listening to him. I had never heard of that book, but I had heard of a little bit about how the Federal Reserve was formed. And most people think the Federal Reserve is the federal government, and it's not.
Nope.
It ain't got nothing to do with the federal government. It's something a little deeper than that. But if you want to know more about it, just go. And I got it on Audible for little to nothing on my credits, because I've had an Audible account for, I listen more than I read.
Yeah, I don't read. Not really.
I read pretty decent, but I can listen and take notes better with the listening. But I take the notes better with the everybody got different learning styles. But
you said the Creature from Jekyll Island?
The Creature from Jekyll Island. When I first heard the part when it said Rockefeller, I said, "Oh, okay, dokie." That's all I'm gonna continue, because when we're done with this, I'm gonna go in and dive into about complete the whole first chapter tonight. So I just got it yesterday.
It really matters what you're reading. It really matters what you're reading, what you're taking in, because what you're taking in is what you're gonna put out. There's a lot of things. Let me see. Hold up. Now she's gonna charge me to spell. And I lived in Georgia too.
Mm-hmm.
Spell Jekyll. JECC9ZJE.
What you trying to spell?
Jekyll.
JE.
Google will be our best friend.
JEK.
YL, isn't it?
JEKYLL.
I ain't ashamed, man.
I ain't gonna never see. Here's the deal. James said it best. Google gonna be your best friend. Now, granted, all the information that we gather from Google don't have to be the be all do all. You still have to go a little deeper. But it's a great reference point. We talked about this before. Back in my day, I ain't have no Google.
Well, you
I
keep
had to go get a dictionary. I had to go get an encyclopedia.
I ain't have Google either.
I ain't acting like I'm old. I'm just in an era where there was no internet, no Google.
I ain't have no internet, no Google either.
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
See there? Now,
No, y'all lying.
okay.
Y'all straight lying. Miss Bertha and I come from a generation where there was no internet.
Brother,
I come from the same generation.
we did.
We didn't have any either.
MS DOS. That wasn't no internet.
Anybody hearing that? What year? Okay. When was you born, Jane? When was you born, Christina? When was you born?
I was playing Wagon Train.
You know what? That ain't tripping. See, now you can see that's how family do. But I was born in 1958. So in 1963, I was 5.
I understand what you're saying, sir.
Right, I know y'all understand. I'm breaking down to you real heavy.
We know you old. I'm just saying.
I'm not old. I'm seasoned. I'm telling you, like the old man used to tell me, if you live long enough, you'll get to say that. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what
the old man used to tell me when I was making them little smart remarks coming up as a youngster. You live old enough, young stud, you'll get to say that too.
I want to tell you something. I can't find it, but I'll share it later on.
Looking for it.
I was looking for a picture that I shared today. I wanted to show it to you, but it's just like I said. When we get online and we start researching things, the things we need to be researching, stay away from stuff like this. Stay away from junk like this. All right, just stay away from that. That's going to depress you. Don't worry about that.
It don't promote anything positive.
Yeah,
that's the device used by Satan to get you stirred up to create foolishness.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that is. No more, no less.
It gets people to try to grab at things, to try to make money fast and all that stuff. Don't do that. Get a plan.
What James said, and you see what I said when you asked that question. How is the wealth gap in America affecting your family? It's not.
I had to ask that question because I want people to understand that we're not focused on anybody else but us.
No, it ain't affecting me.
So
I got my eyes on the prize. When I leave here, I can assure you that I'm gonna follow the scripture that said, "Leave your children an inheritance." Mm-hmm. My children's children. Mm-hmm. I'm not leaving them no debt. Mm-mm. That's not because I'm better than the next person. I just understand that they don't need this. They don't need that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm tired of people saying, "I ain't better." I'm not. I am. I'm better than that. I'm better than I was, and I'm better than the fool out there that don't know no better. So if you want to not be the fool, then you need to get on this. You need to get on this gravy train and learn this information. Nobody's trying to step on toes, but I'm not gonna go back into Jesse's house. I ain't going backwards.
Whose house?
Jesse. You know who Jesse is. Jesse ain't got nothing. But we got to get with that mindset that we can be better, we can build, we can understand the terminology so we can apply this stuff to our lives. Mm-hmm. And if we can do that, if we decide to do that, we can do that. If we decide to do that, it's going to be a change. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be worth it. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be worth it. So get back with anybody who shared this information with you. If they tagged you on this call, get back with them and see what it is we're talking about while we're on here sharing information. It's 3 minutes after 9. I'm going to wrap it up really, really quickly. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. The whole conversation was about this foolishness that's going on about the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap. It don't apply. It ain't even important. I promise you. Get your stuff together. Get your house in order, and we're gonna start helping you to show you how you can start changing that number around if that applies to you. But if it does not, just keep on going past the 171 because that ain't enough either. My name is Eric McKinley. We got Miss Bertha Winston, Miss Lillis Lumpkin, Miss Fortuna Trapper. We got Pastor Gregory Napier. We got Mr. James Hall. Guys, like I always say, when you know better, that's when you have the ability to do better. And the only knowledge that's powerful is properly applied knowledge. Like it, share it, tag somebody, and we'll be back on Friday with another conversation.
Yeah.
Like I always say, man, we're going to see y'all at the top.
Too many people struggling at the bottom.
I love that. Too many people struggling at the bottom. My God.
Yeah.
Peace.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
God bless you.